So how do we take down this COVID church, this establishment of folly? First, going back to Wuhan, I will show that the Wuhan data does not prove that SARS-CoV-2 causes COVID-19. In fact, it is highly suggestive that SARS-CoV-2 does not cause COVID-19. I will show that using this hypothesis that SARS-CoV-2 causes COVID-19, even if it was not shown in Wuhan, still may be true, right? But using this hypothesis is not helpful in explaining COVID-19 data. So there is pandemic data, i.e. cases of COVID-19. There is SARS-CoV-2 data, i.e. incidence of this SARS-CoV-2 virus. And when you try to match these and say, well, virus causes disease, right? Disease is caused by virus, it doesn't match. I suggest an alternative model, which is simple, consistent with all the data, much like a scientific model should be, and has predictive value. Untangling the Wuhan knot. Let's get back to Wuhan. 41 cases. The virus identification process, as described by China, is impossible. They had a SARS-like outbreak in Wuhan. They reported it early, very early, in January 2020. They reported a disease which greatly resembles SARS, and here they had 15% fatality. So 6 out of 50 out of 41 patients died. So it's a lot, actually. So they had this cluster, group of connected patients, which had this unusual pneumonia, and a lot of them died. Cause for concern, no doubt. Now they ID'd the virus, and they showed linkage between this virus and the disease. How did they do it? And I'm not going to go into the details of the papers very much because you're probably not a biologist and you would be bored by it. But I'll summarize. SARS-CoV-2 was the only pathogen found in samples from these 41 COVID-19 patients, and this virus was not found in any other patient. So they have this virus, this new coronavirus. They find it only in people who are really severely sick. Conclusion: this virus satisfies Koch's postulates as the cause of the disease. So SARS-CoV-2 causes COVID-19. Seems reasonable, right? But is it reasonable? It's not. Koch's postulates are used to verify a relationship, a causative relationship between a pathogen and a disease. How do we know? How does the process work? If we find the pathogen, then we will find the disease. And vice versa. If you have symptoms of COVID, then you're likely infected with this SARS-CoV-2, right? So it's a one-to-one relationship. Get the virus, get the disease. If you have the disease, you probably have the virus. Makes sense. Now, when you contrast this with reality, it didn't work. So they say all those with the disease were infected with the virus. Were they? No. So they report having 60 people that were associated with this cluster. So they were associated with a wet food market or live market or whatever they call it in China. And they had the symptoms of COVID-19 and they were in the right age. Everything fit. But only 70%, only 41 of 60 were actually positive for SARS-CoV-2. So they mentioned once that they had 60 people that they suspected, and only 41 were positive. They ignore it after it. No reviewer asked them to say, what happened with the other 18? You had 18 which were not SARS-CoV-2 positive, right? What happened to them? Second thing is that from what we know now, most people infected with SARS-CoV-2 are asymptomatic, right? Especially young, healthy people. And these were supposedly young, healthy people. So initially, China said, everyone with the virus is sick. and everyone who's sick is with the virus. When you look at the details, especially with hindsight, say, well, you're lying about everyone, or you're mistaken about everyone with the disease having the virus. Only 70% of those with the disease have the virus. And the second thing is, where you're actually lying, is that you're not finding this virus anywhere else. And that is simply impossible from what we know now. So let's review. On day 0 of the pandemic, 70% of the people with this new disease were positive for SARS-CoV-2, which is not bad. Okay, so maybe it's the cause. But about 1,000 people, at least, in the neighborhood were positive for this virus and did not have the disease. And we don't know what this virus does, we just assume. So is that a proof? Or it's not proof. It's far from proof. It's the beginning of an hypothesis. We found a new virus. Finding a new virus is not super rare. Rarer. Now, as we go global, as the virus began to spread, and looking at back at the data, it began to spread immediately. So by essentially the week after it was announced, the sequence, it was found in Vietnam, Australia, Japan, South Korea, US, and UK, and a week later in Germany, Singapore, and like 30 other countries. That was when I got suspicious, right? Because I was, well, you're finding this virus outside of China, and it does nothing outside of China so far. That was January, February. So why is it waiting? Untangling the Wuhan knot. Symptoms of a bad model are everywhere. First, a good model gives you good predictions because it captures the essence of reality. A bad model does not. It tries to fit something on top of reality, and that something does not tie down reality. So it doesn't. You can't force reality to do anything. So when you predict something based on wrong assumptions, you're going to have bad predictions. And as we've seen with COVID, all predictions were off by a lot. And as you go on, you have to keep inventing science. So you constantly, I hear this revolting person, Rachel Volensky or whatever her name is, like with the bird eyes looking at the camera, and we're learning so much about this mysterious new disease. You're not learning anything about this mysterious new disease. You're forgetting science. You're forgetting the basics. And that's why, like for Alzheimer's patient, reality is fascinating. Everything is new, right? It's not new. You're just in decline. Now, failed predictions are actually evidence. When a model fails, right, it fails for a reason. One way to interpret the failure of evidence is to say, well, science is basically bullshit. I do not like this approach. The church approach, the Volensky approach, it's a mysterious virus like we've never seen before, which is essentially the same. So these guys are trying to turn science into what these guys are objecting to. So these guys think that science is bullshit conspiracy, and these guys are actually trying to turn science into bullshit conspiracy. And there's the scientific approach, which says, if your predictions are wrong and you're not complete morons, and I don't think these people are complete morons, I mean, Volensky standing aside, but some of these people are good. Why can they not predict anything about this virus? Because their model is very, very wrong at the base. A lot of smart people thought that the Earth was in the center of the universe. They just had really bad predictions, so they had to come up with really smart ways of adding circles and changing the speeds and everything, and then it works. But it can't predict anything. So failed predictions are evidence that something is wrong with the model.